I have a bachelor's degree in communications and advertising from Moravian College. I have an arts administration degree from Drexel, and I'm also accredited in public relations from the Public Relations Society of America. A person progresses in the field of PR by starting with a communications degree of some sort, maybe even a public relations major or journalism or a professional writing course, and then actually getting an internship in that field. So it could be inside corporate or it could be within agencies. But you really want to develop a portfolio of written pieces and be able to show an employer that you actually have practical experience, working in a company. A typical path is probably not that typical anymore. In my day, a typical path would have been an internship and then right into agency or corporate communications. I think these nowadays, students really can go anywhere. And the more technical you are, more adept you are with analytics and data, I think the better off you are for this career in this day and age. The changes in PR in the last 6 or 7 years have been huge. And that is because we have software that can do a lot of things that people used to do when I was starting out as a young person in the career. So in terms of media relations, there's now media relations software. You don't have to go hunt and find the editors who's working at what publication or any of that. It already comes in a software package. So there's some technical, savviness that needs to happen with that. Now, instead of having a clipbook and putting together more of a paper report, you can go into the software system and just click on some widgets of the things that you would like to show in a report, hit print, and boom, you have it for your boss. So it's a very different and very, very much easier approach to the industry now. So technology is huge. We can now adapt, we can now connect the points between communications and advertising as a tactic in PR to the actual sales increases. And we can do that directly now. Before it was sort of a, let's throw it up on the wall and see if it sticks. And there were too many variations to see if things were really working or not. For a career in PR, experience is pretty much everything. So if you have the opportunity to go someplace and get a paid internship, great. If you're only offered a position where you're doing unpaid work, take it. You need to build that portfolio. You need to get lots of different experiences, and that is really where it's at. And I am finding that when we go to the Public Relations Society conference with our students, that these students have not just one internship, but they have multiple internships, like 3 and 4 internships. So experience is everything. If you want that top job, you're going to need the experience. So to qualify for a great entry-level position, I would definitely get those internships, great portfolio, professional dress, practice the interview, research the company, and know what they're doing. If they're an agency, know their client base. If they're a corporation, know who their customer is, know the product, and just be well-versed so that you can speak their language. I think in preparation for the entry-level job, you really want to get connected with the community in PR, and the best community for that trade association is the Public Relations Society of America, and for students, it's PRSSA. And look for a local chapter on your campus if they have one, or find the closest one, or get to the conference. There's also something called IABC, International Association of Business Communicators. They are also heavy in PR. But making those connections, going to those mixers, introducing yourself to professionals, it takes a little bit of money, like $10 or $15 to attend those things during the week, but that's really important. That face-to-face communication with professionals is probably the best thing that you can do for yourself as a practice leading to that. It helps you gain those connections and actually meet people who would be willing to help and mentor you. So the outlook for public relations is really strong. Like I said, it's getting more technical. We're looking for students who have some background in working with software and analytics. We're looking for students who have got the professional credentials, like they're associated with the professional associations. But the outlook is strong. The outlook is very strong, but we're looking for people who are willing to know the softwares and to get involved in that. But the trends right now it's a hot field, and it's a good field, particularly I think for women. So salaries range in public relations from, I would say in the more rural areas, probably in the 30s, all the way up to mid-60s if you're starting in a city. So New York, Philly are definitely going to pay you a better salary than if you're in a rural area. Smaller shops tend to pay less than bigger shops. So if you can start with a bigger brand name for a company, I strongly suggest that. I always tell my students, go for that big brand name versus starting with a smaller shop. Although I do have students that have started in small shops and then have worked their way up to bigger shops in terms of ad agencies and PR firms. There's both ways you can go. I think, like I said, the salaries depend on whether you're city versus rural. City would be more like 50s, 60s range for entry level. And I would say an account executive can make up to $100,000, $125,000 a year. Vice presidents right up in there in that range. And then of course, if you own the business, then you can make as much as you want. So it depends on how hard you want to work and how many staff you want to bring on. The rewards are, it's just a lot of fun. The industry is a lot of fun. It can be very stressful. It's an industry where in some cases when you walk out of the office at 5 o'clock at night, if you're lucky to leave the office at 5 o'clock at night, it's not something that stops just on the weekends, particularly if you're working in communications for an airline or in transportation. So it's one of those things where there could be an on-call situation. But it's very rewarding because you're communicating on behalf of an organization, on behalf of a group of people, and you're getting information out to your stakeholders. So that's very rewarding, and you can play an intricate role in terms of that communication and how that affects people. Some of the problems that may arise in working in PR are deadlines, which are sort of everyday issues that come up. But crisis is a big one. So if your organization comes upon a crisis, which again, that's a performance issue, then it becomes a communications issue. Those are really the big dilemmas that come along and can be a concern with regards to public relations. So you need to make sure that that's a good fit. One of the major frustrations with public relations in terms of a corporate setting is how corporations value public relations. Public relations is a management function, and it should have a seat at the table with upper management. Oftentimes, public relations is looked upon as being a nicety, but it is absolutely critical to be part of the management function. So it should always be thought about in terms of communications in the boardroom and in the C-suite, in the executive suite, in terms of communications and how communications are handled. And it should be strategic. So in my mind, it needs to be a management function and very much part of how the company thinks in terms of marketing, R&D, product, logistics, communications. Boom. It's got a seat at the table. What creates the most stress in PR is probably that deadline issue. The other thing I think is you need good communications above and below and laterally with inside the organization. So people actually need to get you information. So when you've got new products coming out, things like that, that can be a little bit stressful in terms of internal communication, getting materials so that you can actually get to your deadline. I think that's probably the biggest issue there. What could affect future opportunities is definitely this digital age that we're living in. Information becomes fast, furious, quick, and in 140 characters. So being savvy with that in a very strategic way is critical. The industry has changed so rapidly, and so in terms of the digital age, the digital communication, that really needs to be something that you're very savvy with and think strategically. And I'll say this, I think from my perspective, most students are very good at their me message in terms of getting, their brand out. But when they have to sit down and strategically sit down and think about, well, what's the company's message? That takes a different set of thought process, and it's not native for them. It's not as natural as one would think, because they're really thinking about a corporate message, and that tends to be a little foreign. So that's a big deal in our industry. That's a very big deal. The words that I would have for advice to all students is to write well, learn to write well within the paradigm of public relations. Make sure your spelling's great. Make sure you know AP style, or the style in which your corporation is actually writing in. Have great communication skills, awesome follow-up, do those internships, and then find the right company and the right fit for you, and put a really professional portfolio together for that interview. And I think you'll do great. And if you have time through the university, learn Hootsuite, learn about other softwares, explore all of those realms, and then that's something that you can also put on your resume. Be savvy, know your industry, and get to conferences and mix and mingle with people who are in the industry, and find a mentor.